Yes, welcome to episode 2 of Surviving Sales. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate everybody coming out. We're going to give you a moment to come into the room. I have a great guest for you guys today. What's up, Gordon?
How's it going? Good. Can't complain. Friday.
Yeah,
Sun is shining here in Canada, and that's all we can ask for.
I'm sure that we could all complain, but nobody would listen.
Yeah, nobody cares. Nobody cares.
For those of you that are joining us now, change your chat setting to everyone. Let me know where you're tuning in from in the chat. I'm pretty well traveled. I like to see the places that I've been. Who's going to be first? It's Boston. Of course it's Boston. Shout out Kelly, my man in Boston. All right, so let's get to it. I never waste too much time here. I want to get straight to highlighting my guests. So Surviving Sales is a Sell Better production. This is brought to you by JB Sales. I'm excited to have my very own show. Surviving Sales will air once a week and highlight salespeople and their skills all over the world. Today, I am joined by Gordon Maidment, who was once like me, a SaaS sales professional, and then recently switched over to a vertical that's been kind of a wild ride for him. And we've all done this before, right? We all switch roles. We all have to drink from a fire hose for a while. So we're going to uncover a lot of fun facts about that today. Quick facts about Gordon. Gordon was a varsity rugby player. So believe it or not, he's probably very ready for any physical challenge that you might throw his way. He is bilingual, speaking both French and English. En français, c'est préféré. He is a full-time BDR with our friends at Vidyard before recently swapping over to Trusscore to sell sustainable building materials. Quite the dramatic shift. So let me get my slide. I always forget about the slide. Yeah, we gotta throw it out there. Here it is. I love these graphics right here. This whole slide right here is fun. I got new picks coming for those of you that are interested in the new picks. They are coming. I want to give a quick thanks to our sponsors: Proposify, Reprise, Chili Piper, Dooley, my people at Dooley, Sales Loft, Gong, and my very good friends here in Tennessee, Ambition. Without these teams, this show is not possible. So I want to say thanks to everybody that puts together the stuff to go for this show. Thank you very much for all that you contribute to my success and to my neighbors, my community. We appreciate you. Shout out Waterloo. I never see Waterloo in there. I appreciate that. So what's going on, man? Talk to me about how you survived sales and went from where you were to where you are now. Let's kick it off.
Yeah, for sure. No, I appreciate you having me on. It's exciting to be here. I started at Vidyard straight out of university. So that was my first, big sales gig. I'm from Waterloo as well. Shout out Waterloo. Big tech scene for Canada. So it was something I was always around. Ended up in SaaS. SaaS is the big go-to, especially right now. Everybody's like loving being within the industry. A lot of excitement, a lot of opportunities. So that's where I ended up. But down the road, just was loving sales and had a cool opportunity to hop over to where I am now. So Trusscore, sustainable building materials company, completely different than SaaS. So I was completely out of my element, but I knew the CEO, was serial entrepreneur within the region. Kind of going back and forth, talking about the company. And it was just an exciting thing to hop over to. So just I didn't want to let the opportunity slide. Yeah. And that's how I've just ended up here, man. It's been a wild ride, and it's definitely been a wild month.
So I'm curious, after being in SaaS for nearly 2 years, how was the first day at Trusscore?
Yeah, that's a great question, and probably one that I've had from other people that I've come from either Vidyard or other places too. A lot different, big change. I think one of the biggest things is you move back a few paces, to say the least. But yeah, no, it was a big change. It's slightly more organized and less organized. I think we talked about that a little bit before this. It's a lot less structured in the sense that SaaS is very like, you need to learn this product, you need to learn this integration, get a hold of it, hit the phones and get going. This is a little bit different, different vertical, don't know the industry, don't know the product. I can actually touch the product when I'm onboarding, which is crazy to me. So yeah, I mean, it was a big difference, but it was pretty awesome.
I'm interested in the processes and the structures in the sustainable building materials sales world. You mentioned that it's, not exactly the same. We have very specific structures that we go through in SaaS, but in the building materials world, you're dealing with kind of construction personas, they're buying materials to build. I'd imagine, and I said this on the call, right, that we had to prep for this. If you're going to cold call somebody in a construction industry, you might be catching them on the way to the truck from a site. So you have the amount of time from the time they leave the site to get to their vehicle to actually gain that attention and create some level of interest. How often are you in situations like this?
Yeah, like I'll be, being honest with you, and being early on, I haven't really had the chance to absolutely fire off phone calls to contractors, but it is something that they wanted me to be aware of right off the bat. This is
Yeah.
completely different. I mean, we're not normally not catching people sitting at their desk trying to ignore my phone call. This is more like, oh, I'm calling somebody and they're going to pick up, and I really have to stress the importance of how quick the time switch will be between picking up the phone, hey, this is Gordon from Trusscore, and hey man, I'm on lunch and I got to finish the rest of this project. I don't have time for a lot. So, what's the reason for calling? Yeah, it's definitely been a big change. I'm a little bit spoiled because I can still call architects. Shout out architects, you're still in an office normally. So that is nice. And I did do that the other day and he was very receptive. So, appreciate that. But yeah, it's a nice blend between the two. Hurry up and get to the point, and okay, talk to me a little bit more.
There's a couple other differences that are worth noting. One of the ones that stood out to me in our initial conversation was that these are not annual contracts, which is kind of the norm in the space of SaaS, right? You're signing an annual contract, and if they're pushing it farther, they're signing a multi-year agreement, and maybe that comes with some flexibility in pricing. But in this instance, it's not an annual contract because what you're selling will outlast the building it's going into, hence the term sustainable building materials. So what do these conversations look like when you're in that negotiation or contract phase? That must feel a little bit different because what you're selling does not have a time clock on it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Absolutely. And that's where it's almost nice for me because I'm still basically pre-sales. I don't have to go through it in too much detail, but yeah, basically rather than dealing with a company and then trying to continue renewing all the way through, what we want to do is get in on the ground floor within a project specifically as a first point of contact. And then that project can take upwards of a year, 2 years to fully finish, depending on how big it is. And then we're kind of nurturing that a little differently. We're nurturing relationships with the architects, with the builders, with the contractors. So that every time they build a new project, we're at the forefront of what they're looking to do.
So I'm imagining much longer sales cycles to begin with, right? Because you're getting in before the project kicks off so that you can be a resource for the project upcoming. As a prospector, what kind of resources do you look at upcoming projects? Where do you go for that information?
Yeah, no, and that's a great question and something I had absolutely no idea what I was doing when I came in.
I'm curious as heck about this.
Yeah, even in the interview, that was one of the main things. Like, how do I know what's going on? I other than randomly Googling what construction projects are in the area, like how do I know? And there's this awesome piece of software that Trusscore uses, and they only started using it the past about 6 months. It's called Dodge. It's spelled exactly the same way as the car company. And like, shout out to their marketing team. I think it's coming from a company where it's construction.com, I believe, is like the actual web domain that they're falling under. But it's a piece of software where you can check out all these different publicly registered projects, the plans, what architect it is, what the owner it is, what contractor it is. And I can kind of sift through there and find what different areas of walls, which is what we do, are specified. I can look into the architectural drawings to see where we fit in. So that has been the craziest tool, and the number one thing I've been trying to learn these past, say, 2.5, 3 weeks is learning how to use this piece of software. And I had no idea something like this existed. So it's been amazing.
It's always good to learn new pieces of software. I'm curious about onboarding and training in this vertical that you're in, because I know that in our space, it's pretty common to see, hey, you're going to sit down on all these demos, ask lots of questions, right? That's usually how things kick off. But in this industry that you're in, this is actual building material. I'm imagining there's some level of education for the tangible products that you sell, where you put your hands on them, as you mentioned earlier. What's that onboarding and training process look like thus far for you?
Yeah, so it's been slightly different, like we kind of touched on earlier with than what it was in SaaS. I've had to kind of sit down and go through each actual tangible product to better understand like how it works. So I'm not really coming up with, oh, how does this piece of software fit a solution, or how does this make the integrate? This is more around like picking it up. How does this install, and what does this actually do for a building? So they've given me awesome opportunities to meet with the actual R&D people for what they're actually building. I can touch it, which is crazy. I talked about that already. Being able to actually touch it and understand how it works, how it fits together within a building. So getting actual visual and physical, pieces where I can see how this works. And then also just walking me through successful ways that it's happened, showing me different projects that it works with, so I can get a better understanding of like what a success story looks like.
So you're seeing a lot of before and afters. You're seeing a lot of installed product and then the pre-install, so you can see that difference. Is it kind of like, is there a show and tell moment in your sales cycle at all for you, or because you're on the front end of the sales cycle, you're not quite to that point yet?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a little bit of a show and tell aspect to it where I'm actually going to have to go through someone's request and kind of show them, hey, this is how the installation works. This is how it actually works within some of the projects that we've seen success with, like the project you're in right now, and kind of be able to show them visually. And on top of that, I mean, architects and contractors are working off of pretty much plans, technical plans, and I need to show them where that fits in that. So there's a bit of back and forth, a bit of show and tell, and a lot of, we're this rated, have this different integration within walls. These are the fasteners that we have. Like there's so many different things on how it fits in that you don't really think about, and they have to show that as well.
So you have a lot of things that have to fit into the right puzzle holes, right? It's just like putting together a puzzle. There's lots of pieces that have to fit in the right order to get in. But in software sales, there's like 20 features to every product. But this seems like a much simpler, straightforward piece of technology / equipment that you're selling, right? It's tangible, it's standalone. It's this, tangible thing that you can touch. You can reach out and see it, so you're not selling to the 20% per se, you're selling 100% of the product. And you're it sounds like you're basing it on your reputation, you're basing it on scientific research that proves the sustainability. So how do you prove all these things in these conversations early on to earn that next step and get them to the other side of the fence?
Yeah, no, that's another like great point on it's going actually into what they're looking for, which is a completely different industry than SaaS. I don't have to dig as much around what are your problems? How can I fix it? This is how
discovery looks a little different, right?
Yeah, it looks a little different. Someone's actually making a document that's public domain that says, this is what I need. This is how it needs to happen. Does it do it or not? Wow. And from my point of view, like I can take that to other salespeople, account managers, even product managers within the company and be like, hey, these are the technical specs. I think this works based on what we know about different areas of how the product is supposed to fit in, what works with architects. Is this actually going to work out for us? And we can know right away, yes or no.
So it's interesting that you're selling it in a different manner and in a different way and with even a different process than you would in SaaS. But I'm willing to bet that there are some skills that you developed in your SaaS time that lended itself to this process that you're currently in. Can you describe some of those for us?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, first, the main skill is exactly the same as anybody in any business development role now, currently, used to be. And it's that, first off, it's just being able to dig into situations, dig into problems. Definitely communication. You got to get to the point quickly and efficiently, especially in a different industry. And also a lot of time management and being flexible, which is a nice part of what I enjoyed about being a BDR, is being able to do so many different things at once. Is exactly the same here. I mean, there's a lot of different stages. There's a lot of different things that go on. One thing doesn't fit all. I'm having to constantly go back and forth and go through different things. I've got architecture things open. I've got technical specification things open. I've got their actual company information open. So it's a lot of that. And honestly, sales is sales. And if you can sell software, this is really not that far of a stretch, but just a different way of doing it.
Just a different process, different structures for sure. I want to take a moment here, let you guys know that this is a lot of fun. And I really enjoy interviewing all these great people that come in and give their insights from a different perspective. So I'm looking for new guests. If you or someone you know would make a great guest on Surviving Sales, I want to give you an opportunity to get this to them. If they sell cars, construction, video games, retail, hell, if you have a food truck that's thriving in sales, I want to know how you're doing it. So here's the form that people need to be a guest on the show. I've really enjoyed interviewing people. Let's pivot a little bit to the question side of things, because I know that there are layering questions and impact questions, direct questions, thinker questions, right? All these different, open-ended questions, close-ended questions, all these different types of questions. But I'm sure that there are different questions when you're asking this particular ideal buyer of yours, building supervisors, foremen and project managers on construction sites. So what are some good questions that you would never ask in the SaaS space that you kind of have to ask on these particular job sites, these projects?
Yeah. So it's pretty interesting to switch between the two, because you have the normal questions that obviously will kind of remain the same. Like, what's the budget look like? What's the timeline look like? But this one is a lot more specific. I'm talking more like, what's the timeline of the bid look like? What's the timeline of the new contractor coming in look like? What kind of like technical specifications are you looking for? Does it need to be pure water resistant? Like, I'm talking a lot more, not necessarily open-ended, but close questions that have something specific to do with the project that they're doing. I'm not leaving it open to talk about all the great things that it could do in the future, or all the great things that the solution leads to. I'm more dealing with, how does this fit in right now today with what you're building? And that's kind of been the biggest thing. So like, one of the great questions that I had to ask right away on a phone call that I just dove into randomly was literally just calling them and being like, what exactly is the square footage and usage of what you're looking to do in this space? I would never ask that in a million years as somebody in SaaS. I'm never going to be exactly like, how many people for how long are you emailing with this tool? And what are the implications of that? Like, I'm never going to go in that much detail, but I have to at this side.
Yeah, it's funny that the level of detail is so different, and yet we talk so much about deep discovery and SaaS calls, right? But this part of the detail is more centered on something it's a yes or no. Like those answers could make or break your deal, right? And as opposed to an answer in SaaS where you can kind of overcome an objection, or maybe find some way to turn that conversation around. I don't think that with building materials they're willing to take any level of risk at this point, given everything that we know about tragedy in our world, right? So I'd imagine that those questions are extremely specific and poignant. Do you find that these personas are far more blunt and direct in your experience so far?
So far, yeah. So especially an architect has no time for me to small talk and chit chat my way into, okay, like, what are some of the things you're working on? How can I assist you? It's more around, okay, like, I'm willing to pick up the phone because you referenced a specific thing I'm doing. Like, what is it that you need from me? So it's a lot around, hey, I'm calling for this exact reason. I know you don't have a ton of time, but I'd love to quickly talk about why we could be substituted into this project. You have a couple minutes for me to talk about the specifics, the technical part of it, and that's about it.
Do you have closed accounts? Like, do they assign accounts to you to go after, or are you green pasture out there looking for projects and saying, I could be the first one in the door here?
Yeah, no. So it's a little bit different than being a BDR or anything in SaaS. So I don't have specific projects because there's such a wide scope. So pretty much they pick projects that are most likely to be successes based on the past. So right now, I never thought I would do this, but I am going after car washes. So any car wash project that's being built within North America right now is on my radar. And specifically, if I see anything to do with like a PVC, like any plastic coated walling for especially waterproofing when you're washing the cars or trucks, that's mainly what I'm going after. So they'll give me kind of free range on what I want to do, but I'm pretty much towards no segment, no account or anything like that. So it's been a lot different than before.
Yeah, I'm sure it has. I think everybody sort of wants the green field until they get it, right? And then it's trying to like figure out, what actually is a qualified opportunity for me to start talking to. When it comes to phone calls, do you find, and this is kind of how I'm just like filling in the gaps, like imagining friends of mine that I know that work in construction and how busy they are through the day. I'd imagine you take a lot of after hours calls with people that are calling you back, or they just got a moment on their way home, so they wanted to reach out and have this conversation while they drive home. I'd imagine that's happening a lot. Do you find yourself putting a lot of your personal time into these conversations because that's when people are available and they're a lot less apt to spend work time on scheduled calls for that reason?
Yeah, that's the way I'm kind of setting it up right now. Be honest with you, I haven't had a lot of people coming back at me after 5 because this
Okay,
is such a traditional industry that once
sure.
5 hits, nobody really wants to talk to me. I mean, nobody's still sitting in their office like 5:45 being like, I should probably get to that email. Now, like yeah, the project
My
is already,
perception is way off there.
yeah, the project's already timelined out. So by 5 o'clock, a contractor is done what they want to do for
Yeah,
the day. I am in the back burner of what they want to do. They want to
totally.
get home. They want to relax. They want to have dinner.
So it's
Um,
actually the opposite of what I imagined. They're driving home and they think, oh, I was supposed to call Gordon. Whatever. I'll call him on Monday.
yeah, so it is slightly different. I am structuring the way of like my reach out would have to be slightly different. Like normally I wouldn't want to call or email somebody at 8 in the morning in SaaS because I'm either going to irritate them while they're ushering their kids out to school,
Yeah.
or I have absolutely no reason to be calling them on their personal time. This is almost different. They're up earlier, the projects start earlier. There's a lot more to be done quickly
Yeah.
throughout the day. So I'm kind of trying to manage the shift to move things differently throughout the day.
Do you have a personality type that you personally sell best to?
Yeah, I mean, like yes and no, and that's awesome. We talked about that a little bit earlier. Like everybody wants to sell, and obviously everyone sells well to the bubbly, happy person. Give me your best shot. I've got 30 seconds. Give me your best
Let's
shot on what it
go.
is. Yeah. So like we all sell well to those. I've actually found through some of the opportunities I had in SaaS, especially in-person events. So I mean, to anybody on here, if you have the opportunity through whatever company you're with to try in-person selling now that we don't do enough of it anymore, it's a lot different and they're very direct. And in this industry that I'm in now, it's really direct. You need to get to the point. They don't have a lot of time. This is a very specific project. So I'm finding I work well towards some of the buyers that need direct information. And I'm happy to do that because it saves me a little bit of time as well in the conversation. So
My belief is that we all have personality types that we sell best to, and that our vibe is like a magnet, and some people are pulled towards it and some people are repelled by it. And it's our job to know the difference between those two people because we know which one we sell better to. So I'd imagine there's a personality type for everyone out there that they sell best to. If you sell best to the energetic person, for everyone that's like the dry, soft delivery, there's someone else that sells better to them, right? if
yeah.
you if you look at your role overall, would you consider yourself right now to be a full cycle sales rep? Is everyone there a full cycle sales rep? Do you guys follow the predictable revenue model in your industry where you have like SDRs, account executives, customer success, leadership, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so that's the cool thing about working at this company specifically is that technically within the industry, not at all. I mean, there's rarely much in the way of pre-sales. It's a lot of they're more account managers than account executives. So obviously different naming, slightly different way of selling. But Trusscore as a whole is trying to move towards a bit of more of a SaaS model and reinvigorate how they're selling in this industry. So
Yeah.
there's a bit of room for pre-sales, but a lot of it is I'm trying to carry that relationship a lot further than I would have in SaaS. So I mean, once I have a yes, this is probably going to fit in. Normally, where I would hand it to an AE in SaaS, now I need to take it further. Like I need to dig a lot deeper and almost get to pretty much the quote and the actual implications of the deal before I hand it to a dealer or an account management in the company.
See, that looks really different from what we're used to seeing because we're used to seeing SDRs go through some level of qualification and discovery and then passing off, but you're saying, man, it's got to get really far down the pipe with me before it ends up in the hands of somebody that's going to close that deal. On that side of the fence, is it custom to see people close that deal once they have the first call, or does it start over and they end up having multiple calls, multiple stakeholders at the table? Is it fast once they reach that point, or does it take some time?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a 50-50, and obviously it's going to take a while for me to actually see the implications of kind of the stuff I'm doing to actually close, and it takes a while for them to close.
Yeah.
But I think once you build the momentum, it's a little bit quicker, because once you have a yes from an architect or a contractor, that's it. They're going to buy it, they're going to ship it to the site, and they're going to wait to install it. Once it's installed, you're done. But it's on the forefront of that, the beginning stages takes a lot more of like, okay, well, we need to make this open for everybody. So give us your best estimate, give us your best number, give us some of the specifications of how it compares to what I thought I needed. So to answer that, it's kind of a bit of a 50-50, but once it's a yes, it's clearly a yes. There's not as much of a ghosting, or not as much of, actually, you know what, I'm going to backpedal. This might not fit for me. It's pretty much done.
There's an element of what happens after the buy being a focus in most sales cycles, but I don't think you have that, because as you said, and I just left your mouth and I thought of it right away when you said, once it's installed, it's done. You're done. You're finished. It's over. It's installed. It's permanent. It'll outlast the building. If that's true, then there is no aftermath that needs to be considered in your space. It really is all about that contract, that signature. And once it's done, it's in and it's done, right?
Yeah, pretty much. So once I've connected them to like basically an account management, or especially somebody who can go boots on the ground and talk about the specifications, once that bid is done and we're included in it, until we get the money. But I mean, once it's done, it's done. They can't really go back on it. They're not going to put half a wall up and be like, you know what, this solution's not for me, I'm going to take it down and switch it. No, it's on site. It's being installed. You've committed to it, and that's pretty much it. So that's why it's so important to get everything really honed in at the beginning, because in construction, once it's in, you're not going back.
Well, it's Friday, and you guys know that I like to drop things in the chat for you to actually take part in and be a part of. Morgan J. Ingram and I are delighted to bring back a 5-day challenge. This time it's all about LinkedIn. I'm putting the link in the chat here. This is 5 straight days next week of LinkedIn Fire. We are going to score all of you that are part of this challenge, and the winner will get a t-shirt and a live coaching session with me and Morgan J. Ingram in person. So I hope you guys sign up for that and be a part of that. Gordon, how can people reach out to you if they want to learn more about you, what you do, how you help people? Anybody that wants to contact you, what's the best route?
Yeah, for sure. Best route would be my LinkedIn. So it should be connected within the webinar. I can actually go back into it and drop it in, or if I have that handy on me, which I might not right now.
I got it right here.
Yeah, just to throw that in the chat. My connections are always open. So if there's anybody that has any information or wants to ask me anything, more than happy to help, whether it's SaaS or not. Always here to do a little bit of good, and I love chatting with new people. So my DMs are always open, as they say.
That's it. It's all about talking to strangers. I tell people all the time, that's our job, right? If you think about it, we were all told as kids, don't talk to strangers. And then we became an adult and we started in sales. And now we're paid to not just talk to strangers, but get in the van for the candy and the puppies, right? Like that's our job as professional salespeople. Gordon, I want to thank you for coming out to the show, sharing your insights. It's always great to bring somebody with perspective and interesting conversation to my audience. I know they appreciate it as well. I want to thank our guests for coming and joining us to learn from Gordon and all the things that he's doing. Please join us next week when we bring you another stellar guest at Surviving Sales. We can all sell better together. Gordon, last message to let everybody go. What would it be?
I would say just keep on going, whatever it is, no matter what you're doing, just keep on going, especially all my SDRs, BDRs out there. Just keep going. Things are up and down in sales all the time.
That's right.
So you got to just keep course, connect with amazing people like James, and keep being proactive, hit on those resources, and you can do some nice things. Also, if you're ever anyone out there, you're ever trying to redo your garages or anything, let me know. If you need a little Trusscore help, always happy to do that. And yeah, and also if this sounds cool or interesting, feel free to take a look at Trusscore on LinkedIn. We post some cool stuff there around how we use it. So if you're ever curious about actually what I'm doing, feel free to take a look.
That's good. Persistence pays. Gordon's always down to connect. And if you guys need me for anything, you know that I'm always at your disposal for my audience. We will see you guys next week. Have a great one. Thanks for coming out, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Happy Friday.